Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's November 24th. Today we celebrate a prolific writer who loved violets and wrote about a secret garden. We'll also learn about the best-selling book that hit bookstores today back in 1859, and it changed the world forever. We'll look back at some timeless garden advice from 1966, courtesy of the Arlington Heights Garden Club. And we'll hear some words from an English garden designer about making the most of October and November. We'll grow that garden library today with a book about incorporating edibles into your garden design. And yes, it does matter which varieties you choose to use. And then we'll wrap things up with some charming miscellany from the New England farmer in 1843. But first, I just want to remind you that if you have a second today and you can head on over to the Daily Gardener website, you'll find it over at thedailygardener.org. Once you're there, you can sign up for my free Friday newsletter. It's completely free. It'll show up in your email every Friday, and inside you'll see a personal update from me. You'll get some garden-related reminders and items for your calendar, in addition to the Grow That Garden Library featured books for the week. They'll all be there in a nice little list for you. And then since it's the holiday season, I'm going to be including some gardener gift ideas, garden-inspired recipes for the holidays, and exclusive updates regarding the show for 2021 and more. Plus, don't forget that each week, one lucky subscriber is going to win a book from the Grow That Garden Library bookshelf. So go ahead. You have nothing to lose. Head on over to the Daily Gardener website and sign up for the free Friday newsletter. In curated news, today's article comes from Apartment Therapy. It was written by Jessica Wang, and it had this incredible title. It says, "This chaise lounge is designed like a Zen garden, and there's even a pond." Well, what this article is talking about is this fantastic lounge chair. It's called the Diane Chaise Lounge Chair, and you get to pick 3 different environmental features to choose from when you're designing your chair. The standard version comes with book storage or shelves. The garden version comes with side planters and a water pond that's underneath the lounge chair. Can you believe this? And behind the back of the chair, there's actually a shallow pond. And the whole point of this garden chair is to inspire the meditative feeling of being immersed in nature and listening to the calming sound of running water. What a unique chair. I've never seen anything like it. So you've got to check it out. And of course, I share it in the Facebook group for the show. So if you want to check it out, any of the curated news articles that you hear about on the show, in addition to the original blog posts that I write, you can find them all right there in the free Facebook group for the show. So you never need to take notes or track down links. The next time you're on Facebook, just search for the Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and then request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. Here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of the British-American writer and playwright Frances Hodgson Burnett, who was born on this day, November 24th, 1849. Frances was born in Britain. As a small girl, her family home backed up to property that was owned by the Earl of Derby. Frances remembered it as, quote, the Garden of Eden. Frances's father died when she was 3 years old, and his death forced her mother, Eliza, to leave England with her 5 young children and immigrate to the United States. After settling in Tennessee, Frances began writing to help her mother make ends meet. Frances published over 50 works during her lifetime, including her popular children's novels, Little Lord Fauntleroy, A Little Princess, and The Secret Garden. Although Frances became America's highest paid woman writer, her personal life had profound low points. She married and divorced twice, and Frances lost one of her two sons to tuberculosis when he was just 16 years old. He died in her arms. After losing her boy Lionel, she covered his casket in the flower that symbolizes innocence, modesty, and everlasting love, violets. For Frances, whether in America or England, gardens were a place for comfort and restoration, and violets were her flower. It was Frances Hodgson Burnett who wrote, "If you look the right way, you can see that the whole world is a garden." And she also said, "Everything is made out of magic, leaves and trees, flowers and birds, badgers and foxes and squirrels and people. So it must be all around us in this garden, in all the places." And it was on this day that Charles Darwin's On the Origin of the Species reached bookstores. It was November 24th in 1859. Over 20 years had passed since Charles departed on the HMS Beagle for a 5-year voyage around the world. On this revelatory trip, Charles discovered the building blocks to his evolutionary theory in the fossils and diverse species he encountered on his expeditions. Often, Charles is depicted as an older man on the Beagle, but in reality, he was just 22 when he sailed away, and still a young 27 when he returned to England with boxes full of specimens and a brain swirling with new ideas. Darwin was 50 when his book began selling in bookstores on this day in 1859. And it was on this day, November 24th, in 1966, that the Arlington Heights Garden Club shared their garden tips for the week in the Arlington Heights Herald. Highlights include the following: soil is alive, teeming with life, tiny insects you can see, and billions of organisms not visible with the naked eye. If cared for properly, it grows and increases in value. Now, bear in mind, this advice was 40 years before Teeming with Microbes by Jeff Lowenfels. Such a good book. They also suggested that drooping cut roses can be revived by making a fresh cut 2 or 3 inches from the bottom of the stem, then by placing in a tall container of very warm water until they perk up. And the Arlington Heights Garden Club shared their suggested houseplant for the week. It was the shrimp plant, or the Beloperone guttata, or the Justicia Brandegeana, a sturdy plant with shrimp pink bracts that overshadow the delicate white flowers. Just know that this plant is a native of Mexico, and these plants can grow up to 6 feet tall in their native habitat. As houseplants, it's good to prune them back in the spring because the stems are brittle and they tend to snap. And then they also make one final suggestion that if you have houseplants with smooth leaves, they'll benefit from a soap and water sponge bath on both sides of the leaf surface. In Unearthed Words, today's words are from the English author and garden designer Vita Sackville-West. And she talks about how gardeners make the most of October and November. Here's what she wrote. If it is true that one of the greatest pleasures of gardening lies in looking forward, then planning of the next year's beds and borders must be one of the most agreeable occupations in the gardener's calendar. This should make October and November particularly pleasant months, for then we may begin to clear our borders, to cut down those sodden and untidy stalks, to dig up and increase our plants, and to move them to other positions where they'll show up to a greater effect. People who are not gardeners always say that the bare beds of winter are uninteresting. Gardeners know better and take even a certain pleasure in the neatness of the newly dug, bare, brown earth. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, The Beautiful Edible Garden by Leslie Bennett and Stephanie Bittner. This book came out in 2013, and the subtitle is Design a Stylish Outdoor Space Using Vegetables, Fruits, and Herbs. And this book was one of Amazon's best garden books of 2013. And it's one of my favorites. Leslie and Stephanie are the founders of the landscape design firm Star Apple Edible and Fine Gardening in the San Francisco Bay Area. This book was their stylish and beautifully photographed guide to artfully incorporating edibles into an attractive modern garden design. Now, this fantastic design duo, Leslie and Stephanie, specialize in artfully blending edibles and ornamentals together. One of my favorite aspects of the book is that Leslie and Stephanie also show how to make edible arrangements with clippings from your garden. It just does not always occur to me, so I thought it was a fantastic idea. The team at Star Apple has managed to refine the way that they look at edibles in the landscape. And no surprise here, they focus on beautiful, luxuriant foliage, just like most garden designers tell us to do. And of course, the flowers. So if your garden, your vegetable garden, looks wild and straggly at the end of the year, or just stresses you out, use Leslie and Stephanie's ideas to make your edible plants as beautiful as they are productive. This book is 220 pages of garden design for veggies, fruits, and herbs, with oodles of ideas for making edibles an attractive part of your landscape. You can get a copy of The Beautiful Edible Garden by Leslie Bennett and Stephanie Bittner and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $10. It's a deal. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. The New England Farmer shared a little post of miscellaneous news at the end of 1843 that caught my eye. Here's what it said. Mosquitoes in November. The New Orleans Diamond of November 24th says, as we write, myriads of mosquitoes are hovering around us like evil messengers. Think of that, ye frozen dwellers at the north. According to the Journal of Commerce, potatoes are now selling in New York for 75 cents a bushel. And finally, they shared this little tidbit. A beautiful Oriental proverb runs thus: with time and patience, the mulberry leaf becomes satin. This is, of course, a little reference to the silkworm's only food source, the mulberry leaf. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Wyoming, Minnesota with the help of Paige Mance, Brooke Bierbaum, Kiana Rayleigh, Maddie Doyle, Natalie Decker, and Eric Begay. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media. You can follow the show on Instagram, and listeners always have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. All the stories and books that are featured on the show can be found over at thedailygardener.org, thedailygardener.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. Last but not least, you can share your own gardener greetings on the show by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.